Hello everyone, I'm going to share one crazy game with you today played by none other than the GOAT of brilliant moves, Mikhail Tal. This game was played in 1971 in Tallinn, Estonia, which is often referred as the Tal in Tallinn game. Tal's opponent was the Estonian Grandmaster Andres Vurema, and let me tell you that this is one of the most complicated chess games in Tal's library. It's a masterpiece that really deserves your attention. Tal started the game with the move pawn to e4 and black replied with pawn to c5, the Sicilian defense. After knight to f3, d6 and d4, we get takes, knight takes and knight c6. We enter the classic Sicilian variation. Then Tal plays knight to c3, it's met with queen to c7, which is also known as the Sozin setup, followed by bishop to e3, a6, bishop to d3, knight to f6, castles and bishop to d6, and we have completely covered the opening status of the game. Here it's worth noting that after bishop to d6, black is preparing a battery aiming to take this pawn on h2 and deliver a check to white's king. A normal person would play a move like g3 aiming to block this bishop's vision, or a move like pawn to h3 simply avoiding any complications. But Tal is a different kind of player and he decides to play king to h1, setting up a trap at the same time. If this pawn is taken, Tal would play the move pawn to g3, disconnecting the bishop from the queen doesn't defend the bishop anymore, and this will easily get to the bishop being lost. So this is the reason why this pawn is poisonous and it cannot be taken. After king to h1, we get the move h5 from black. Tal responded with pawn to f4, occupying more space in the center, and then came knight to g4, attacking the bishop on e3. Then Tal replied with queen to f3, and after knight takes, queen takes, black successfully traded the knight for the bishop on e3 and obtained the bishop pair. But really, at what cost? Because the knight used 3 moves of development: knight to f6, knight to g4, and then knight to e3 in order to trade it for a bishop who only moved once. So black lost 3 tempos while white only 1. And this is really bad because black still hasn't castled and he has a really passive bishop on c8. So this trade wasn't really smart. Black continued with queen to b6, pinning this knight on d4. It can no longer move because otherwise the queen on e3 will be taken. Tal replied with knight to e2, reinforcing the knight in the center. Then came pawn to e5, attacking the knight, and capturing on e5 was possible, but objectively a strong move was the one which Tal chose in the game. You can pause the video and try to find the move yourself, but it's a really specific move for Tal. He ignored this threat and played the brilliant move queen to g3, allowing black to take this full knight in the center of the board. And black really did, and this was followed with queen to g7, attacking the rook, and the queen is slowly invading black's territory and getting really close to this important king. Rook to f8 is the only move, and Tal added the move pawn to e5, targeting the bishop. Black retreated with bishop to e7, and Tal pushed pawn to f5. Now we're entering the playing against Tal territory, where you have lost and you don't have any good ideas. Objectively, black was still holding, and even grabbing this pawn on b2 would have been a fine idea. However, black enters a panic attack and plays the move f6 in order to block anything and not allow white himself to play the move f6. However, this is exactly what Tal wanted. He jumped with knight to f4, and the idea soon becomes clear. Black played rook to f7, attacking the queen, and here comes a vintage Tal moment. E takes on f6. A brilliant move, a full queen sacrifice. And let me demonstrate what happens if the rook takes the queen. So if rook takes g7, we get pawn takes, and the